Hi there. Welcome to Studio Movie Recap. Today we going to recap thriller drama film, Berlin Syndrome. The film begins with Clare, a young female tourist from Australia. She arrives in Berlin, Germany. She was very excited to explore the city as she was fascinated about Germany and its people. She walks to the hostel where she will be staying for the duration of her time there. Her first night, she saw other tourists who were partying at rooftop and they invited her to join them. They engaged in conversations and drank the whole night. The following morning, she was amazed with Berlin's sunrise view angle from her hostel and captured a photo. After she dressed up and went to take a tour around the city with her backpack. She buys some clothing, slides for her camera, and goes out and snaps pictures in the street of a woman hanging a colorful sheet out of an apartment window. As she was waiting for traffic lights at the sidewalk ready to cross, she met a man named Andi who was an English teacher from Germany coming from the library. He intentionally drops his books to start conversation with Clare, and Clare helps him pick them up. After that, a conversation between them followed. He offered her strawberries and told her that they are good to forget one's problems. She was curious why he thought she had problems. He tells her that he came to that conclusion since he saw her walking alone. Clare told him that she is a tourist and visiting Berlin for a short period of time. Since she was new to the country and alone, Andi offered to show her around, and in return, Clare was going to teach him English as he was still learning it. Clare liked him as he was friendly and kind to her and felt safe around him. She trusted her instantly. He takes her to view the public garden where the strawberries are grown. As they get to know one another, Andi told her that he likes non-crowded places since they are very peaceful. Later that day, Andi drove her back to her apartment. When they arrived, Clare invited her for drinks inside her apartment. But he rejected her offer and told her that he had to go somewhere. He touches and tries to kiss her, and Clare was submissive since she also liked him. The next day, Clare goes exploring Germany once more. She finds Andi at the same bookstore reading a book of artworks which indulge in sexual activities. They spent the day together. When Clare asks how do you say choke in Germany, Andi tells her, then demonstrated it on her, strangling her. Even though that was not appropriate thing to do, Clare was not concerned. She found it attractive. That evening, Andi drove her to his apartment. He was staying in quite isolated and silent area. The wall was torn, showing signs of abandonment. He was the only person staying there with no neighbors or close houses. He was staying on upper flat, which was tucked away behind a gated building lobby behind a small enclosed courtyard. When they arrived, they couldn't help themselves but being intimate with one another, and they had passionate sex that night. She expresses her want to stay rather than continue on to her next stop, which was Dusseldorf. Andi departs for work in the morning to teach at a nearby school. Clare woke up and prepares a day bag ready to leave. As she tried to open the door, she noticed that she was locked inside. She tried to look for the spare key but couldn't find it. She didn't panic. Instead, she hangs out in the flat, prepares some food, and waits for Andi to come back, thinking he mistakenly forgot to leave her house keys. When he gets home, Clare explains why she was unable to leave. He apologized and told her that he forgot to leave the keys. Andi jokingly tells her that next time he will tie her on bed. Clare decided not to leave but to spend another night with him. They engage in sexual activity in the shower. In the morning before Andi leaves for work, he points out the door key he left for her on the dresser. While making herself breakfast, she idly wanders around the apartment and discovers the book of artworks that Andi was reading from the bookstore. When she opens it to her favorite page, she discovers a picture of herself sleeping off with the word mine tattooed on her shoulder, and she also noticed that her necklace which had her ring on it was missing. When she looked at herself on the mirror, she really had tattoo on her shoulder. She becomes anxious and wants to leave. To her surprise, the door couldn't unlock. Turns out that Andi gave her the wrong key. All the windows were also locked. She looked for her phone so she can call for help, but Andi removed her SIM card, so it wasn't working. Feeling in danger now, she tries to break the window with a chair. After she successfully done so, she finds a second reinforced panel behind. She was trapped like a mouse. When Andi comes back, she was at the door preparing to leave, but he didn't let her through. He brought her flowers which Clare didn't accept. Andi noticed that she tried to escape and was pissed that he broke his glass that he bought with his hard-earned money. He warned her that if she attempts to shatter the window again, he would have to fence it. Now that she is aware of the seriousness of the situation, she begs him to let her go, but he dismisses her pleas and prepared dinner so they can eat. She explodes into a violent rage at his craziness and tries to kick and beat him, but he pushed her and tells her that no one could hear her. That's why he chose that apartment. He ties her to the bed. Since she was going to be tied the whole day without moving or going to toilet, he puts plastic sail under her so that when she pee herself she won't dirt the sheets. The following day Andi visits his father, who asks why he was late. Andi says he met someone and tells him about Clare. His father asks about Natalie, the girl he has been seeing, and Andi tells him she returned to Canada. At evening Andi arrives and releases her. After Clare takes a shower, while doing so she discovers clumps of long blonde hair in the sink. Realizing someone else has been there before her, he informs her that he emailed her mother to let her know she is fine. The following day, Andi leaves for work, leaving Clare free to roam the apartment since she is unable to escape. Clare searched around the apartment and found a screwdriver hidden under the couch. After got back home, she found Clare fixing puzzle. She looked happier and calm. She asked Andi for help to solve the puzzle. While Andi was happily doing so, she dropped some puzzles so Andi can pick them up. She used that chance to forcefully plunge the screwdriver into his hand, and his hand was attached to the table. She then snatched the keys and ran away. When she was across the courtyard and down the stairway front building, she couldn't open the door. It was locked. Andi catches her and smashes her hand with the door, breaking some of her fingers. Clare becomes unconscious and Andi brought her back to the flat. He meets his father the next day. When he asked about what happened to his hand, he tells him that he accidentally cut himself when he was cooking. When Andi gets back home, Clare makes an effort to diffuse the tense atmosphere. She kept pleading with him and telling him how much she misses her mother, but Andi tells her that she will never leave that apartment until death. He then takes naked images of Clare in bizarre and disturbing situations. The following day, Andi witnesses Franca, a female student, and becomes aroused in gym class. Franca also noticed Andi looking at her unprofessionally. He arrived at home and cleaned Clare in the showers as she couldn't do it herself because of her broken hand. While he was doing so, Franca knocks on the door. Andi tells Clare that he will kill the girl if she speaks up. When Andi answers the door, Franca tells him that she followed him home. She starts to flirt with him and holds his hand. When Andi sees Clare in the hallway standing in a towel, he tells her that she is his girlfriend, and he tells her to leave or she will report her to her parents for what she tried to do. Franca then left. Back inside the apartment, Clare asks the girl her name and Andi tells her that she is one of his students. Time passes, and Christmas has arrived. Clare is terrified, but as Andi plays with her more and more. At one point, Andi asks her to be normal. When Clare tells her that he is not normal himself, he becomes irrationally angry and slaps her. Then he left her and went to live with his father. Clare is left without electricity for days. After the apartment's power goes out, the apartment was cold and she survived by eating what food she can find. After his father passes away, Andi stays in his father's house for a few days before calling the caregiver. A few days later, Andi returns to the apartment. It was the first time Clare was happy to see him. She thought she was going to starve until she dies. She thought Andi was not going to come back. She comforts him after he told her about his father's passing, and Andi aggressively rapes her. Clare starts to adjust to the circumstances as she lost hope of ever leaving that flat, so she starts by cooking, cleaning, and trying to look presentable. She also starts to play music. For Christmas, Andi gifts her a book and his father's dog. Clare was so happy, and Andi believed that she was falling in love with him and they will become the family he wanted. For the first time, Andi lowered his guard and took Clare to a remote outdoors in nature. They were walking around the now forest and Clare appreciating to feel outside atmosphere again. Andi was carrying an axe with him. He raises his axe behind Clare. She wanted to kill her. However, a small child interrupts, running over and shouting to aid his injured brother's leg. Andi is frightened by their arrival and becomes distracted. Clare takes advantage of this and tells the kids to go find help. She is kidnapped. The kids couldn't understand what she was saying as they could only speak German, so they got scared and left. Andi is upset with Clare and tells her to be calm or he will kill everyone there. Andi escorts Clare back to the car and stuffs her into the boot and heads back to the apartment. Andi was now annoyed of Clare's presence and jealous of her relationship with the dog. He takes the dog for a walk and doesn't return with it. Clare is alone again and heartbroken. Claire slips into the locked room while Andi is at a New Year's Eve party and finds his camera, a massage chair, and an album of pictures of Claire while she is being held captive. Claire also discovers an album with a different blonde girl who is similarly beaten and shackled. At the party, Andi found his next victim and tries to start conversation with her. The girl was comfortable around him, but he failed to seduce her as she had to leave with her friend. When Claire returns to the kitchen, she sees someone else's apartment across the courtyard shining a torch, so she yells at them and smashes the window pane that was just fixed. The man saw her and went to Andi's apartment to help her, as he tries to release Claire. Andi came back and uses a hammer to kill him. He then shifts the blame to Claire that it is her fault that the man is dead and forces her to help wrap up the body and mentions that every time she involves someone on their affair, he will kill them. He then burns the man's body in the coal pit in courtyard outside. The next day, Andi punishes Claire by cleaning up the blood and board up the windows. He becomes alarmed and tells Claire to pack her luggage because they are leaving the apartment. After seeing an advertisement for missing people in the local paper that features Claire's picture, Claire sees students' workbooks that Andi is grading on the table. She purposely burns her palm, then hides Franca's notebook while Andi gets some cream from the bathroom. The next morning, Andi hides Claire's bag in the cellar downstairs and shuts off the pipes and spills all beverages on kitchen sink, denying Claire of water. He then leaves for work. When he hands out the workbooks at school, Franca discovers a picture of Claire, gagged and bound, tucked between the pages. Franca quickly gets on her bike and leaves the classroom and didn't tell anyone where she was going. The photo fell and was picked by the other students. They gather around looking at the photo. When Andi sees the photo, he panics and races back to his apartment. He discovers Franca's bicycle outside the main structure and looks through a basement window to see where she broke in. Claire has left and the apartment door is open. He went stairway with muddy footprints and Claire was hiding inside a cupboard. Andi then goes back into the apartment, just as he is about to enter the room where Franca was hiding. It was vice versa. Now Andi was the one who was played. Claire locks him inside the apartment without hopes of him seeing daylight again. She hoped he was going to stay there and starve until he died because if she reports him to police, he might win the case since she was a foreigner in that country. Claire then takes Franca out of cardboard and couldn't express the appreciation she had for Franca for helping her escape. She finds bags containing her passport and mother's ring. She then experienced an overwhelming feeling of joyful relief at realizing she is really freed from the apartment, which is something she thought was not possible. Andi was resting in his massage chair and felt like he was imprisoned in his house. Did you like our movie recap? Please don't forget to like and subscribe. To be updated on our next recap, hit the notification bell.